Hi, everybody. It's Patty Widget here. Just letting everybody get logged on and we'll get started. Today, we're going to be talking about paving the road to eviction. So bear with us while we get started. As soon as my moderator for this training tells me that we have everybody on board and in here, we'll get going. In the meantime, you guys, if you look in the chat box, there's a link. That link is the documents that we're going to be talking about today. So you can go ahead and download those. You can print those, but those are the three documents that we're going to be going over in detail and in depth today. And if you guys want to ask a question, please use that screen. Let's talk about it. And we'll get going here shortly, but you may want to go ahead in that chat box and look at those, download those three documents I gave you: a notice to enter, a notice to quit, and a notice to cure or quit. So 3 different documents that we're going to be going over today. It's the basis that you would need for building a case based on a nuisance or something along those lines. And we will go into depth and talk about that. Where are my other notes? Here they are. So who do you just let me know when you want me to get started when it looks like everybody's logged on. And in the meantime, everybody can go in the chat box, click on that link, download those documents, print them out if you'd like. That's what we're going to be going over to, at least, you know, you have the documentation to review. So we'll deal with that. You don't see the link? Hold on really quick. If you click in the chat, it's up at the top. It says https://drivegoogle.com. Yes, and he just posted it again. So it's back in that chat box again. There we go. Thank you, Nick. I'm just trying to get everybody on the same page, reading the same book. Yes, thank you. I'm here to try to make this as simple as I can, because I'll tell you right now, this is not the easy way. This is the hard way, but it's the way that we have to do things right now, because the money isn't due until January 31st of next year, 25% of it. And then the balance of 75% becomes due in February. So with that being said, it's not about the money anymore. It's about the drama. And the drama is the long, hard way to do it, but it still gives you results. Okay. Also, I'm going to ask that you have a rental agreement handy or nearby. Any rental agreement will do. I'm just using it as an example to show you what I'm going to try to be explaining, so you can reference your own rental agreement. And if you don't have one, don't worry, it's not an issue. Okay, we don't have to stop the world for it. It just, I figured it would help. Sometimes if you can see it in your own language, and I mean the language of your lease, not when you can read it in your own lease's language or your own rental agreements language, it becomes much easier to understand. That's what I'm trying to say. But it wouldn't come out of my little blonde brain fast enough.
Okay, we can get started, Patty.
Okay, so hi, my name's Patty. I also go by Widget. I do work for a company that evicts people for a living, and I do want to have some sense of security and safety in my life, so that is not my real last name. And everybody wants to hide, right? Well, I deal with your problem tenants when you're done with them here at the law firm. So with that being said, just want to tell you a little bit about me. My name's Patty. I was a regional property manager for over 20 years. I am a licensed real estate broker. I have a lot of credentials behind my last name. It's ridiculous. It looks like alphabet soup. That's not my point. My point is, I'm a lot of things, but I am not an attorney. I am not your legal counsel. I'm going to explain to you what I do the simplest way that I possibly could. I don't give legal advice. I'm not legal counsel. I'm not telling you how your case is going to come out. It has nothing to do with legalities. We all know as adults in California that we have to stop at a stop sign. Okay. It's the law. So when we come to a stop sign, we need to stop. It's the law. If you blow through the stop sign and get a ticket, now you need legal counsel to help you get out of that ticket. That's not me. Where I come in is teaching you before you accelerate away from that stop sign, if you count to 3 before you leave the stop sign, you're less likely to get a ticket. So what I'm here for is to teach you the process and the procedure to help keep you out of court or to help set you up to get there, depending on what your intentions are, okay? So with that being said, please know that nothing that I say is to be considered legal advice. It doesn't act as legal advice. It's my opinion based on my experience in the industry, nothing more, nothing less. That being said, hi. And yes, I am a licensed real estate broker. Like I said, I have a lot of credentials behind my name. I'm here to teach you a few things about what we're looking at today eviction wise. And I'm going to set the scene for you, paint the picture, and we're going to talk about it in depth today. Okay. So I think all of you would agree with me that for the past 20 years, at least, if not more, we would call our attorney and we'd talk to our attorney and we'd say, oh, my tenant's doing this and they're doing this and they're doing all these things wrong. And the attorney would listen to the whole story. And then the attorney would ask one question, but are they behind in the rent? And then we'd say, oh yes, they're behind in the attorney always says the same thing. Forget all the drama. Let's go after the money. That's the easiest way in the state of California. Well, September 1st of 2020, the law changed and the planetary alignment has shifted. Going after the money is not the easiest way in the state of California. Now, building the case on the drama has more teeth than the money, okay? The new law states if they simply say that they were affected by COVID by turning in the declaration on a monthly basis, that they only owe 25% of the full rent amount, but not until January 31st of next year. With that being said, the rent money's not even due yet, okay? And people say, oh, they have to be affected. I hate to tell you this, you guys. We've all been affected in one way or another, even the president of the United States. Everybody's been affected by COVID. And if your tenant hasn't been paying the rent, you've been affected. See how that worked? Okay, so stop going down that rabbit hole. Obviously, you need to document that so that when the time comes to go after the money, all your ducks are in a row and you've done your job. In the meantime, what we want to do is pave the road to eviction through the notices, through the process and procedure of building a case based on a nuisance. And the reason that I'm using nuisance as an example is if they're not upholding their end of the bargain, it becomes a nuisance for us, especially if they're fighting with other people. It becomes a problem for us because now we're on the phone talking to other residents, talking to the neighbors. It's just a nightmare. And I get it. I understand. I've been in this business for a long time. Having to build a case this way is not the easiest way, but unfortunately, with the way that the current laws are acting, it is the way where we have more teeth to get possession of our unit, especially when they're doing things wrong. And I'm going to say this to you, please take it for what it's worth. If you have the ideal model tenant that is in their property, they aren't breaking any of the rules, they aren't in violation of their lease in any way, shape, or form, and they're not paying you because of COVID, buckle up. There's not a whole lot you're going to be able to do. Start talking to your mortgage company about a forbearance or whatever programs you can get involved with to get the help that you need. Because I'll tell you right now, you're not going to get it from the court system. If they're not breaking the rules and they're not paying the rent, so be it. It is what it is. Because with AB 3088, they don't have to until the very last day of the month of January of next year. Okay? So I'm trying to retrain your brains to stop going after the money. And people say, oh, but they owe utilities. Oh, but they have late fees. Again, we're talking about money. Stop going after the money. The money's not due yet, okay? I'm trying here. I really am. So today we're going to talk about how to build the case to give to your legal counsel without having them do all the notices. So it will help you. If you haven't already, you can go in the chat. There's a link in there with the documents we're going to be discussing today. There's 3 of them that we're going to be talking in depth and detail about. One is the notice to enter, one is the notice to perform or quit, and the other one is the 3-day quit. Okay. The 3-day quit I'm going to leave for last. That one has to have specific content, and I'm just going to jump in here. I'm going to use 2 examples today. One is going to be failing to allow entry, and the other one we'll talk about as we go along. If you guys have questions, I'd like to address them while we're on the subject rather than at the end of the training. So if you have a question, let's ask it. Let's get to it. I do have a moderator that will be helping us today. His name is Hootie, and Hootie is here to help us. So we can always ask if we have questions or things of that nature going forward. So without further ado, let's jump right in. First thing we have up on the screen is the notice to enter. Here's some things you guys need to know. This has to do with California Civil Code 1954. How do I know that? It's right on the top of the notice. Makes me sound smart, but really, you guys, come on, it's right on the top of the notice. It's pretty easy. So with 1954, it's a very simple, easy document to fill out. However, there's a couple loopholes in this and then a couple tricks. A lot of people say, oh, I texted my tenant, I want to come in. Here's what you need to know. California Civil Code 1954 says that you must physically serve them the piece of paper. That would be this notice. So if you're emailing or text messaging this notice, it doesn't count. If you want to do this, you got to do it, and you got to do it right. You got to play by the rules. Okay, you can't rewrite them as you're going along. So anytime you intend on gaining access to the property, the proper process and procedure in the eyes of the court is to serve this notice to enter at least 24 hours in advance. So the very first line says we're giving notice to, that would be your tenants' names, okay? And all persons in occupancy of the premises located at, that would be the property address, okay? So first line is the tenant's name, second line is the address. The third line says the day you're going in. So what day of what month and the year. Please take note that the year on this notice may be incorrect because the one in my hand is, but it's kind of tiny, I can't see, but you want to make sure the year's correct on there. The next line says specifically, during normal business hours. You need to know that normal business hours is Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So if you're attempting to serve notice to go in on a Saturday, you can't do that. That is not normal business hours. The tenant could deny you entry and they're not doing anything wrong when they do. It must be normal business hours, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. So if you make an arrangement to go in on a weekend and the tenant says it's okay, and when you get there, they say it's not okay, you're in the wrong. You need to understand that, okay? Remember, we have to play by the rules, okay? So the next line where it says normal business hours, let's pretend that we want to go in there at 11 o'clock. We don't put 11 o'clock on this notice. It's a bad business practice. The reason being is if you show up at 11:01, they don't have to let you in. See how that worked? So we want to give a window. If our intent is to be there at 11, maybe we want to say from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. That way we gave ourselves a window of time to go into the property and not a direct time. Anything could happen. We could be late. We could get a flat tire. It screws up everything. So just give yourself a window. It's a much better business practice. It gives you a little bit more leeway. Do not be a jerk and put from 8 to 5. Okay. And the reason I say that is if your tenant is wanting to be there during you coming in, which is their right, you're basically telling them they have to be there all day. And I could see that if you have ongoing work going on, and we'll get into the depths of that. But if you're just going in to inspect, you don't want to tie up their whole day. It's not right, which can be an ethical issue. So we have two different things we talk about is illegal and unethical. Illegal means you can't do it by law. Unethical means you shouldn't do it because it's not right. In other words, just because you can doesn't mean you should, okay? With that being said, we want to go in for the reasons of the items checked below. To make necessary or agreed upon repairs, very important. Decorations usually doesn't happen because we don't go decorate things, but you never know. Most of the time what we see on here is to check smoke detectors. And I believe you can check the box for other smoke detectors is always a reason that you can get into the property. The one that I like to put there is preventative maintenance inspection. And let me get into a little bit of detail as to why, okay? You as a landlord have two major things that you have to do, okay? It's part of your obligation as a landlord. You are required to do two things off the top of my head. Number one, even if you don't have a written contract, so if it's an oral agreement or a written contract, you as a landlord have two things that you must do. Number one is you must provide habitable premises, okay? In other words, you must provide a house that's fit for a tenant to live in. That's number one. Number two is you must help protect the right that the tenant has or that all tenants have for quiet enjoyment. Okay, so right to quiet enjoyment. Number two, number one, habitable premises. That's your job as a landlord. Okay, if nobody's ever told you before what your job is as a landlord, those are the two things: right to quiet enjoyment and habitable premises. With that being said, even if you don't have a written contract, you can enforce this, the notice to enter with California Civil Code 1954, if you do it properly. Yes, I'll elaborate on right to quiet enjoyment. Let me get that far, okay? Thank you for asking. I saw that come through. So one of the reasons I like to go in is I check box number 11, and where it says other, I put preventative maintenance inspection. If the tenant, and I'm just giving an example here, you guys, hasn't paid rent in 9 months, okay, and we can't really do a whole lot because of this COVID thing, they're also not calling you to tell you about repairs that need to be done in the property, right? Everybody's going to think about this for a minute, but I'll tell you right now, across the board, we're 70% less requests for maintenance. That scares me, because that means that they're in there dealing with potential habitability issues. And if they don't have habitable premises, they don't owe the rent. Hence why we need to get in there as a landlord and do a preventative maintenance inspection so that we can ensure that the house is habitable. That way, when the rent is due, they're not pulling that card on us, okay? Everybody with me? So preventative maintenance inspection is a good choice. Also to check the smoke detectors. That one's a good one that's allowed by law. So those two are really good reasons to get into the property. There's other reasons listed on here. If they apply, check them. Okay, then you want to make sure you date it, you sign it, you give a phone number, an email address. Very simple. This notice either needs to be posted on their door at least 24 hours in advance, or you can mail it to them. In the event that you mail them a notice to enter, you must mail it at least 7 days in advance. Well, here's my opinion. That gives them 7 days to get their unit ready for your inspection. It's much better business practice to go take this on the door 24 hours in advance. I'm going to get to what they do if you don't let them in, okay, honey? I promise. That's where I'm headed. So, with that being said, we want to put this on their door, go back in 24 hours. Let's talk about if they don't let you in. If they don't let you into the unit, that's a material breach of your lease contract. It's also a violation of California Civil Code 1954, which says If a landlord properly serves a tenant, that would be your tenant, the proper documentation and notice to enter, and the tenant fails to allow entry, that could be a material breach of their lease. Okay? In other words, they have to let you in if you do this. Now, that doesn't mean that you call the cops and have the cops beat the door down. That's not how this works, okay? So just keep following me because we're gonna go into depth and detail down some rabbit holes. So I wanna make sure everybody follows me. First, let me ask a question. Does anybody have any questions about how to fill out notice to enter? Because this is how you're gonna start paving the road to get to an eviction. This is how you start. First, you have to get in there. You have to prove that you went in there and you're not just going off of things you know already, okay? Because you have to react upon notification. So this is going to start paving your road to the eviction, okay? Any questions on how to fill this notice out or how to serve it? Remember, go put it on the door 24 hours in advance. Not difficult. Fill out a proof of service. Keep it in your file. You always want to hold on to your original document and serve a copy, okay? So now that we're past that, I'm going to get away from this notice and talk about, okay, go Nick, what's your question? And I'm going to look at other people's questions really quick. Elaborate on quiet enjoyment. I'm going to do that. They don't let you in. Okay, Nick, what's your question? You're going to have to type it. I don't think we have capability to mute and unmute today. So, and it's hot in this room I'm in, you guys. It's bad. It's really bad. Okay, elaborate on right to quiet enjoyment. I'm going to do that while Nick's typing his question. Right to quiet enjoyment is a requirement that basically says that we as landlords have to make sure that there's quiet enjoyment for everyone. So in the event that you have two residents fighting in a 10-unit apartment community and they're fighting and arguing with each other, both of those residents that are fighting are disrupting the right to quiet enjoyment. You as a landlord, if you don't do anything about that, you could actually get sued by the other 8 residents in there for not providing the right to quiet enjoyment. So you have to act upon that. You have to try to stop the disruption, if you will. Okay, if they're coming into your office and cursing at you, that would be disrupt to right to quiet enjoyment as well. So quiet enjoyment has to do with everybody having quiet enjoyment of the community. Okay, so I hope that helped make sense of what quiet enjoyment is. Let me see what Nick said. The tenant gave me a phone call for the 24-hour notice. Do I print it up? A 24-hour notice should be given to the tenant each time you want to go in. That is the proper process and procedure. If you have a verbal agreement to go in, know this. It's just a verbal agreement, okay? In other words, it's not going to stand up in a court of law. In order for it to hold up in court, you must have the paper trail. The paper trail is why I'm teaching you guys this class. This is the hard way, but right now it is the only way that I see that we're able to build a case and go after possession. Does 24-hour notice have to be, hold on, I'm reading, David. 24-hour notice has to be signed, or typing my name under it can be sufficient. You can sign or type, you can do your signature, whatever works. That could be you, the owner, it could be your agent. Anytime I'm going into a property, even if the tenant has told me verbally, it's okay, come on in. I always try to do the 24-hour notice because quite frankly, that's us doing our job. Okay, it's not rocket science, folks. So I'm going to get away from the 24-hour notice to enter, and I'm going to move on to the 3-day curable breach of covenant. Okay. When the tenant does not allow you into the unit, you would then serve a 3-day curable breach of covenant. This has a couple different names, and I'm going to talk to you about that. This one says notice to perform covenant, cure, or quit. Okay. That would be technically the legal term for the document. Some people call it a cure or quit. Some people call it just a covenant notice. Tomato, tomato. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's all the same. It is a curable notice. Okay. Curable meaning they can fix it. So we're giving them, and let's go into detail about this document. First, let's start at the top. It's very easy to figure out how to fill up the top portion of it. It's the tenant's name, the street address, the city, state, and zip code. Super simple, okay? That's the easy part. It's the blank part where it says number 1 that we're gonna talk to in depth, but let's look at the bottom part. Landlord, owner, agent, the date, your address, city, state, zip, telephone number, fax, email. Here comes the important part, you guys. Dates, times, and witnesses. We need this I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Your legal counsel needs dates, times, and witnesses right on the notice. If this is an ongoing issue, put the dates, times, and witnesses that you have, and at the end of it, write ongoing. In other words, you continue to play your music loud after 10 o'clock. You continue to do whatever it is that's going on. Just, you can put under there continuing, so that it's continuing on, so that the judge knows it's not something that just happened once or twice. It's something that's ongoing. It's continuing. Okay. So very important that you have dates, times, and witnesses. That is a big key to this. Don't think that's something you can leave blank. Okay. Because you can't. That is one of the big keys of a cure or quit notice, is your dates, times, and witnesses. So let's go back to the story we're painting. We serve 24-hour notice and are not letting you in. This is what you do next. You don't argue with them. You don't fight with them. Okay. You just say, okay, thank you. You go back to your office, you pull out a 3-day curable breach of covenant notice, and you fill it out. Within 3 days from the service of this notice, you are required to either perform the following covenant or cure the following breach of your lease or rental agreement. This is when you would say on, and I'm giving an example, January 15th, 2020 at 2 p.m., you failed to allow entry as per California Civil Code 1954 after written notice was served. And you could put every time you tried to go in, dates, times, witnesses, right on this notice. Hold on, somebody's asking me a question. Can I see the form you have in your hand? It looks different from the one I printed from the link. The only reason it looks different, and I'll be very honest with you, is mine has lines on it and yours doesn't. Okay? That's the difference there.
Patty, the ones that we provided are actually the newest versions that Fast Eviction offers.
Oh, and I'm looking at the older version?
Yeah, they're a little bit changed. It's just the
Okay,
way
let
it's
me
worded.
zoom in on it. Okay, we're fine. You were still fine with it, you guys. Oh, I see. It doesn't have dates, times, and witnesses at the bottom. So I see what you're talking about, Jose. So you can put the dates, times, and witnesses right there in paragraph number 1 where you're going to write on it. Okay. So you can write the story. Tell them what happened on January 1st at 2 p.m. You failed to allow entry to me. You're the witness. Now you have a date, a time, and a witness. See how that worked? Okay, and I'm going to go in a little bit more detail down a different rabbit hole and we'll revisit it. If you had a police report, you would put the date, the time, and the officer would be the witness. You with me? It's very important that your notices have dates, times, and witnesses. This is a big thing to build this case. This is part of the process and procedure of the court and what they're looking for. Remember, you're asking a judge to throw somebody out of a property when we have an order to shelter in place from the government. So what we say here matters. We need as much evidence as we can to prove to that judge why they need to give us our house back. That's how I need you to think about it. So when you're writing the story of what happened, write it. You also need to quote the lease and what it says in your lease. So if you have an oral agreement, you just want to quote the California Civil Code 1954, you failed to allow entry when written notice was served to you to enter on this date at this time, and you failed to allow me in, or whoever in, the workman, whatever. We need all that documentation. If you have workmen that are at the property that are going to go in with you to inspect, and they're going to give you an invoice and charge you $45 for a service call, have them put on the invoice that the tenant failed to allow entry. That is also going to help you, not hurt you. It's going to help you because you're going to be able to show the judge, look, I had to pay $45 to a workman and they wouldn't even let the workman in. So that also helps, okay? This is where the drama kicks in. This is where the story kicks in. This is where your chain of events comes in extremely handy. This is where we're getting into the nitty gritty of how to build a case, okay? So we got that. They failed to allow entry. We named it on the notice. We put it in the notice. That's that. Now, you're gonna go post this notice on their door and mail them a copy. Post and mail, personal service. It also wants to be followed with a new 24-hour notice to enter, and I usually try to go in on the third day to see if they'll let me back in. Now that I've told them what the rules are, I want to go back in. So I'm doing a notice to enter also. Does that make sense to everybody? So I'm serving both documents. This one of you didn't let me in on this date at this time, but I'm coming back in on this date at this time. So basically you're serving both notices at the same time. And we're just talking about a failure to allow entry at this point, okay? We're not talking about anything else. We're going to get into the other things that you can do in just a minute, but I see some questions coming in, so let me answer them. What if a tenant who had reported another tenant and want to remain anonymous? How do we include witnesses on the notice? You need to be the witness. If you witnessed it or the on-site witnessed it, that needs to be the witness. For example, playing loud music or feeding stray cats. Be glad they're feeding stray cats and not stray humans. Just saying. I know, April, you're laughing right now. I'm sorry, you guys. I try to have a sense of humor. Yes, I know. Be glad they're feeding stray cats and not stray humans. Sorry. I've done this for too long. I find too much humor in it. So you want to put the witness of whoever witnessed that. If the person that's reporting it isn't willing to go to court or isn't willing to be a witness on this, it becomes more challenging. You have to get more involved. Maybe law enforcement is involved, especially if it's loud music and there's an ordinance in the city. Because if we have an ordinance, Crystal, hang on, I'll get to you. I'll get to you. If we have a municipality that has a rule, and I'll give you an example, let's go with loud music. No loud musics before 8 a.m., after 10 p.m., any day of the week. And I'm just giving an example. The city has more teeth than we do. So their rule is more restrictive than our rules. Okay, you with me? So if we have to call the police because of a noise violation, we want to put the incident number right on the notice with the officer that went there. Okay, and I'm gonna get into detail of that also. So just bear with me. I understand this is a lot. Can we record what happens as evidence or proof? Yes, you can record it, but here's the problem, and I'm being honest with you. They don't watch recordings in a courtroom. So if you can take screenshots from that and add that into your evidence when it comes time, they're not going to take your cell phone and watch a video, in the middle of a court trial. That's not how that works. Okay, so remember, your documents that the courts are familiar with are your notices. Okay, yes, and you can snap screenshots from a recording. Yes, you can, but I don't think that recording would necessarily be used in court. So if your mindset is, I'll just record the whole damn thing and show it to the judge, that's not a very good mindset to have. You're not following the court's process and procedure. You're trying to figure out your own easy way to do it. let's face it, folks, I've already told you at the beginning of this, this is not the easy way, but right now this is the way we have to regain possession during this whole COVID nightmare, for lack of a better way to explain it. So does everybody got that? We're going to do the covenant notice and a new 24-hour notice to come back in on that third day, the day that this notice expires. I always pick that third day. You don't have to do it the third day. You can try to go in on the second day. But remember, they have 3 days to fix this. So we want to either check back on the third day or even the day after to see if they'll let us back in. If they don't let you in again, this is when you call your legal counsel. And I'm going to tell you why I say that. It's not just because I'm not an attorney. It's we need to know what court, your attorney needs to know which court this is going to be heard in. They know that court better than anybody. They're in those courts every day. So they may know, as an example, in the city of LA, and I'm not quoting this, you guys, I'm giving this as an example. So don't hold me to this. And I'm going to throw out ridiculous numbers so that you understand what I'm talking about. In the city of Victorville, they may say, your attorney may say, oh, you only need to do one covenant and then the quit notice behind it. And we'll talk about that because you're telling them fix this or else. Okay, that's what a cure or quit means. Fix this or else. The or else is, here's a 3-day notice to quit. You can't fix this, get out. Okay, so that's the documents we're talking about today, is a notice to enter, a curable, meaning they can fix it, or the incurable, which is get out. Okay. I know it's a lot of moving parts. Just bear with me. So your attorney may say, in the city of Victorville, you only need one covenant notice for the lease violation that you're going for, and then you can serve the quit notice, and then we can start the case. In the city of Los Angeles, the attorney may tell you, you need 4 curable breach of covenant notices before we can do the quit notice and move on with your case. Only your legal counsel can tell you how many notices you need to do. And they know that because they're in those courts all the time. So they know what those judges want. I don't. Okay? Just so we're clear. So does everybody understand you may have to do this only one and done in some areas, and in other areas, you may have to do it multiple times. In other words, you may have to do this curable breach of covenant for failing to allow entry 4 times in a row before you can do the quit notice in some cities. It's just going to depend on that city and what's going on in that court, okay? I saw a question come through. Let me see if I can get to it. Have these days changed due to COVID from 3 to 15 for cure or quit? Okay, thank you. I understand exactly what you're asking me. Yes and no, okay? Hear me out. If it has to do with money, it's a 15-day notice. Okay, so anything that's monetary is a 15-day notice. 15-day notice to pay rent or quit. 15-day covenant notice for late fees, unpaid utilities. Anytime you're talking about money, it's a 15-day notice. If it's failing to allow to enter, it's a 3-day notice. So it's 15 days for money on anything that we're doing going forward, at least until January of next year, and a 3-day if it's not monetary, meaning there's no money involved. Example, they didn't allow me to enter. Okay, that would be a 3-day. They didn't pay me the late fee, that would be a 15-day. So the difference that we have here is money and not money. Good, I'm glad everybody's with me, you guys, because I'm trying not to bore you and to give you facts. And I know this is extremely overwhelming at points, and I'm trying to make it as simple as I can. So work with me, okay? In the event you're in a city where the attorney tells you you only need to try to do this once, and then you do the quit notice, then you would do, and they still don't let you in on this one, remember, because we did the covenant. They have 3 days to fix it. I served a 24-hour notice to go in on the 3rd day, and they still won't allow me to enter. and the attorney said, I only need a 3-day, one covenant in order to get possession. In that case, followed up, you're gonna do the 3-day notice to quit. Hootie, change my slide, please. Thank you. I see you working on it. So the 3-day notice to quit, this is really important, and I can't emphasize this to you enough. Okay, simple to fill out on the top, simple to fill out on the bottom. Okay, but I can't emphasize to you enough. This is the document a judge looks at. This is the document where everything needs to be in order. Throughout this whole process, everything should be in order. But this is the one that basically tells them, you can't fix this, get out. Remember, we have a government order to shelter in place. So it's got to have enough teeth into it that a judge is going to agree with you and not side with the tenant. So you want to make sure that this, and by all means, have your attorney look at it, have your legal counsel look at it for you. As you can see, and I'm checking your notice, let me make it big. Okay, it clearly states the reason for this notice being served is, and we have in parentheses, include dates, times, police report numbers, witnesses. This is what I'm going to tell you guys. If you didn't put it on this notice, in other words, you didn't tell the drama, you didn't give all the details. And when they say details, they want dates, they want times, they want witnesses, they want police report numbers. It's got to have all of that. If you didn't put all of those details and all the drama and the whole story that happened, here's where it becomes an issue. When you file the lawsuit, and this is as simple as I can explain it, this 3-day notice to quit is going to be the basis of your eviction case. All of these other notices that you did are your supporting documentation that you did your job to get to this notice, okay? But this notice is the basis for your case. If you didn't put it all on this notice, your attorney can't argue it in court. Let me give you an example. Let's say that your tenant's doing 5 things wrong. They have unauthorized pets, unauthorized occupants. They are potentially growing marijuana in the garage. I'm working here. Give me a break. I did this yesterday and I should have wrote it down, and I know Nick wrote it down. I'm like, Nick, help me. Unauthorized pets, unauthorized occupants. Let's throw in a failure to allow entry, growing marijuana in a unit, and they killed the grass. Thank you, Nick. Thank you. They killed the grass, and it was part of their rental agreement to maintain the landscaping. So they got to keep it alive. Okay. Let's say that you think that their unauthorized occupants and their unauthorized pets is enough for the judge to hang them. So that's all you put on the notice, and you leave out the fact that the grass is dead, that I've already forgot the other 2, you guys, I'm sorry. I'm having a day. You forget the other things, you didn't put them on there. Well, the attorney can only argue the things that are on the notice. That's all they can argue in court. So you can't get there and go, oh, but they're also doing this and they're also doing this. No, the process and procedure is for you to tell what they're doing on the notice. If it's not on the notice, the attorney can't argue it. If it's not on the notice, look at it this way. It never happened. Okay? Because what you don't want to happen is you don't want this to happen. Oh, they have unauthorized pets. They have unauthorized occupants. That's all I need to put on this notice. Then you get to court and they say, well, that's not an unauthorized occupant. That's my caregiver. Ugh, that's a problem. Caregivers they're employing, not a resident. Oops. The unauthorized pet that you're speaking of is my emotional support animal. Ugh. Okay. So now all the wind got sucked out of your sails because you can't argue the fact that the grass is dead, they're growing marijuana in the garage, because you didn't put it on the notice. So if you didn't put it on the notice, it didn't happen. You with me? That's what I'm trying to say when I say if it's not on the notice, it didn't happen, because your attorney can't argue those things. They're hearsay. so to speak. But on the document is where it has the teeth. So you want to tell the whole story. And I have some examples for you guys just to give you an idea so that we're all playing on the same rules by the same book with the same goal in mind. Okay. Do we have any questions before I start giving you some examples of verbiage on a 3-day curable breach of covenant? In other words, you have 3 days to fix this or else. Hold on. If a tenant, I see something, Jose, hold on. If a tenant has COVID and we need to update or draw up a new rental agreement legally, will the court accept electronic signatures? Electronic signatures are allowed in a court of law on the application and the disposition of security deposit at this point. You don't need wet signatures anymore, okay? However, when you get to court, you can't take an electronic file, it needs to be printed out. But yes, they can sign electronically, but as far as the court's concerned, you do need to have paper document when you get to trial. Did that answer your question? Okay, thanks. Sorry, I try so hard to make sure I get in everybody's brain and get their questions answered. So I'm going to give you a great example, and I have to be careful because this is actually filled out with people's information on it, so please forgive me. Hootie, can we go back to cure or quit, please? Thank you. So this is the one where we're letting them know that they have 3 days to fix this or else, okay? And I'm going to read to you what the law firm has on one of their notices. Okay, you have to perform the following covenant or cure the following breach of your lease/rental agreement. Here we go, okay? You are in violation of your rental agreement dated 3/24 of 2018. So we're also dating the day they signed that rental agreement. See how this is kind of tying everything all together for the court? You with me? Okay, so you're in violation of your rental agreement dated March 24th of 2018, paragraph 6, item 3. Does that make sense to you guys? When you look at your rental agreement, some of it's written in paragraphs. We want to reference that paragraph. Some of it, sometimes we may put page 3, paragraph 6. We want to give that type of a description to the court so they know where to look for what they did wrong in your rental agreement. Okay, so I'm going to repeat it again. You are in violation of your rental agreement dated March 24th, 2018, paragraph 6.3. And you have to copy what that says from your rental agreement. And it says, tenant agrees, which states to keep the premises clean and sanitary and properly dispose of all garbage and waste and yard maintenance is included in tenant obligations. So we're telling them where it is in their lease contract, they broke the rule, and what basically that says. I copy that paragraph word for word, okay? And then here comes the date, time, and witness, so follow me. On or about 10/15 of 2020, it was discovered that you have not been maintaining the yards and you let the grass and the bushes die. You're also in violation of paragraph 6.8, in which the tenant states that the tenant is not to destroy, damage, or remove any part of the premises, equipment, fixtures, or commit waste or permit any person to do so. It was also discovered on 10/15 that you have 2 broken windows, holes in the walls. You remove the toilet and the carpet. In addition, you are in violation of paragraph 6.9, where the tenant agrees, which states that the tenant is not to keep pets or a waterbed on the premises without the landlord's written consent. It was discovered that you have 2 dogs on the premises. Lastly, you're in violation of paragraph 6, item 10. Tenant agrees, which states that the tenant is not to make any repairs, alterations, or additions to the premises without the landlord's written consent. You have changed the locks on the unit without the landlord's written consent. Another one that is really easy to catch besides the lock change, just for record, is if they installed cameras. Okay, that would be a modification to the property without written consent of the landlord. So 2 key things you can watch out for is, did they change the locks? Because I do it if I move into a new place. I'm just saying, because I don't know who else has keys. I ain't playing. I want to pick who has keys. So, but it is a modification of the property without written consent of the landlord. So we're seeing that happen with them changing the locks and also them installing camera systems, Ring doorbells, etc. If they're installing something on the property and they're not allowed to install anything on the property, and they put up a flag or they hang up Christmas lights, that could be considered modifications to the property without written consent of the landlord. But it has to have that in the rental agreement. If it's not in the rental agreement, you can't do it. You with me? Okay. So it continues to say, you have changed the locks to the unit without the written consent of the landlord. Within 3 days of the service of this notice, you must. So not only do you have to tell them what they're doing wrong, you have to tell them how they can fix it. So within 3 days of the service of this notice, you must A, maintain your yard and keep the premises clean in a sanitary condition. B, fix or restore the holes in the walls, the toilet and the carpet and 2 broken windows. C, remove all and any unauthorized pets. D, restore the original locks on the doors. And then in parentheses, it says pictures available. In other words, we also have photo documentation of your violations as well. We'll save those and use those for the court because that's who we care sees the before picture, the after picture. And when you're in somebody's unit, you can absolutely take photographs, but I'm not telling you to open the drawers and take pictures of their underwear. Don't walk in there and just take a picture of their big screen TV or their valuables. It looks like you're casing the place. You don't want to do that. You want to be respectful. Stand back and take a photo. Take a couple quick photos of something that's wrong. We're not trying to be aggressive here. We're trying to get in here so we can do our job, which is to provide habitable premises, and therefore we need to do a preventative maintenance inspection. So I gave you guys an idea of a notice to perform, covenant, or quit. I have another one that I want to share as an example, just so you guys are clear. And mind you, you can write this paragraph. This is where you want to tell the whole story. What form do you use if there's no space for the reason for the notice to quit? Hold on. What form do we use if there's not enough space for the reason on the notice? Please see page 2 and attach another sheet. I've done a curable breach of covenant notice. The longest one I've ever done is 6 pages. Okay, so you can add additional pages 1 through 6. Please see additional pages 1 through 6. You want to list everything. You want to tell the story. You want to tell the drama. Because remember, if it's not on here, your attorney can't argue it, and neither can you. So you can't get into court and go, oh, but they're also doing this and they're doing this, and this is hearsay. This happened. Does that make sense? This, the court recognizes. Running your mouth about what they did wrong, the court doesn't recognize, okay? So let me read this to you just so you understand. And, oh, this one doesn't have it. Oh, it kind of does. Okay. Within 3 days of the service of this notice, you are required to either perform the following covenant or cure or quit the breach of your lease agreement, which you are in violation of your lease agreement dated February 26, 2011. Again, it's just another date and a reference that can reference, okay? So it's important that you're quoting the date of their rental agreement. And remember, they signed and agreed to this rental agreement. So this is how we're proving that they did something wrong, okay? It all ties together. Paragraph 3, ordinances and statutes, which states that the leasee shall comply with all statutes, ordinances, and requirements of all municipal, state, federal authorities now in force, or which may hereafter be enforced pertaining to use of premises. For the past approximately 30 days, it was discovered that you have been parking your car in front of the front door, blocking the entrance and the exits for other residents, which is unsafe and a safety hazard. You are also in violation of paragraph 5, upkeep of the premises, which states that the leasee shall maintain the premises in a clean and sanitary condition at all times. It was discovered that, number 1, your kitchen counters are covered in filth, muck, and grease. Number 2, you have clutter of boxes, bicycles, bags, debris, and other miscellaneous items everywhere in the interior of the property and all over the exterior of the property as well. And number 3, you have dog feces all over the parking lot, which is causing your neighboring residents to step on it unknowingly. And in addition, your dog barks all night, which is creating a disturbance for the neighboring residents. Lastly, you are in violation of paragraph 10, right of entry. We talked about this, you guys. That's your notice to enter, which states that a lessor reserves the right to enter the demised premises at all reasonable hours for the purpose of inspection and whenever necessary to make repairs or alterations. The landlord has attempted to enter or even discuss that he needs to enter to make necessary repairs, but you become hostile and rude and start to yell at the landlord. Within 3 days from the date of the service of this notice, you must A, stop and cease from parking your vehicle from the front doors, blocking the entrance and the exits for other residents. B, remove the clutter from the interior of the property, clean up after your dog, and clean the kitchen counters. C, allow access to the landlord. And D, restore the property back to its original and sanitary condition. So do you see how we're telling them all the drama that they're doing wrong? We're quoting where that is in their lease contract, and then we're telling them what they have to do to fix it within the 3 days. That all has to be there for this notice to be good. So it needs dates, times, witnesses, the paragraphs of the lease that they're violating, the drama of what they're doing wrong, and how to fix it. Everybody got that? Because if you got that, I'm going to be like, yes, I'm doing my job today. It's got to have a lot of moving pieces. And this is why we say this is not the easy way to do it. But now, with all the law changes, this is the easy way. The money is the hard way, okay? Because it's not even due yet. Okay, I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on a 3-day quit. You guys are asking really good questions, and I thank you for that. And I just want to use a couple of examples of a notice to quit so you guys see how those are worded. And this will be up on the website so you guys can revert back to the webinar later. Can you put a 3-day quit up there for me, Hootie, please? Okay, you guys, this is important, okay? And I can't reiterate this one enough. Hold on, I see something about a question. Hi, Patty. Will this recording be sent out? I have a doctor appointment that I must leave for. It will be on our website for you to reference later, so don't be late to the doctor, John. Go. Can an owner use a PO box for the address? On which notice? On the curable breach of covenant? Yes. Okay, bye, John. It'll be up on the website for you later, I promise. Yes, you can use a PO box on the covenant notice, no problem. Unless it's for money, then that becomes another issue. But we're not talking about money today, you guys. We're talking about the drama. All right. So here comes the big one. This is the notice that it intimidates me. It scares me, okay? This is where the teeth need to be. This is where all of the planets need to align, where all your ducks need to be in a row. And the reason I say that is because if you prepare this case or any case that you're doing the way that I'm explaining to you, doing your notice to enter, doing your covenants, and then your quit behind it, you basically walk to your legal counsel and say, here's the case, let's go. And all of your ducks are in a row and they're able to go fire it off. It makes their life much easier and it gives you a good rock solid foundation and a platform to have your eviction basis. You did your job. You went above and beyond. You did a great job. If your attorney turns and says, okay, let's proceed with these notices, that's when you need to know, yes, I did it. Okay, that's when you get happy. So on the 3-day notice to quit, and we're talking about the big gap in there where there's a big paragraph, okay? So let me see what it says on yours. It says the reason this notice is being served is, and in parentheses, it tries to remind you guys, dates, times, witnesses, police report numbers, because remember, this is what your legal counsel can argue is what's on the notice to quit. The cure or quit, we gave them an opportunity to fix it. We even told them how they had to fix it. Remember to do that 24-hour notice after the cure or quit ends so that you can go in and reinspect to see if they made those changes. I'll tell you right now that if you did a curable breach of covenant and then did a quit behind it and you never went in to reinspect to see if they did what you told them to, you're probably going to lose, okay? It's part of the process. So you wanna make sure you have your 24-hour notices in there that you're re-inspecting to see if they made the changes that would put them in compliance with their lease rather than being in violation of their lease, okay? One of the things I've seen opposing counsel do on a curable breach of covenant notice is they've turned to the property manager and said, and when did you go in and reinspect and where's your supporting documentation? Well, my 24-hour notice to reinspect is right here. So I went on this day at this time, and this is my supporting documentation. That's how that works. If you don't reinspect to see if they fixed it, you failed. You failed you. Okay, hold on. I see a question come in from April. No, you can use the forms from the CAA. I'm just using, if that's what you use. Again, a lot of people have different forms. They all have the same pertinent information on them. And I'm just trying to teach the class. I don't have rights to the CAA's documents. I have rights to Fast Evict's ones. So I'm using Fast Evict's documents just so I don't break any copyright laws. That's all. Trying to be a good girl here, you guys. But yeah, you can use your own documents. That's not the issue. What the issue is what you put on them. Okay. So now I'm going to read to you the basis of a 3-day quit. I actually have 2 of them. Some of them are a little humorous, but this might make a little bit more sense to you guys because you're like, oh, the cops came, that just gets them out. That's not how it works. So let's go into 3-day quit notice. And I'm just going to read you what this one says. The reason that you're being served this notice is, and then it reminds you dates, times, and witnesses. Very important. If you don't have that, this doesn't work. So when you're writing the story, you need to include the dates, the times, the witnesses, if it's ongoing, yada, yada. So here we go. It has come to attention that you, and I can't say the name, but there's several names of people in this property. We're just going to say tenant A, okay, have become a high level of danger and a threat and severe and extreme nuisance to the neighboring residents and to the community. Big words, I know. Lots of big, powerful words there. On or about October 1st at 8 p.m., you took out 2 You took out 2 heavy armory assault rifles and a hunting rifle, and you were pointing them at neighboring residents. Yucaipa Police Department was immediately called. The police knocked on your door and surrounded your unit, and you, Tenant 1, wouldn't come out. Incident number, and it's typed on there what the incident number is. Now we know it happened on this day at this time. The Yucaipa Police Department was called, and we have the incident number. See how the sentence gave the court all the details they're needing? That's what I'm trying to get in your guys' heads. That's why I'm reading you examples. Okay, so let me backtrack. The police knocked on your door and surrounded your unit, and you, Tenant A, wouldn't come out. Incident number, blah, 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 blah. The neighbors are now petrified for their lives and their safety. You pose a tremendous danger and threat to neighboring residents and their families and to the entire community. You must vacate within 3 days of the service of this notice. See how that paragraph told the story, gave the drama, had dates, times, witnesses, police report numbers. That would be what an attorney would need in order to argue it in a court of law to get the judge to understand that this is a big problem. Okay, everybody with me? I'm going to read you one more and then I'm going to take questions, okay? This is a different one. This is also a 3-day notice to quit. Sorry, it belongs to a client, so I don't want to cause any trouble, okay? I'm seriously just trying to help you guys get the gist of what you need to do to put enough teeth in this so that it holds up in a court of law. And I'm going to tell you right now, if that tenant comes in your office and starts bitching and cursing at you and using the F-bomb, telling them that they're going to kill you and how they're going to do it, you put all of that detail on the notice. I know it sounds ludicrous. Why would you put the F word on a court document? It shows exactly what you're dealing with, okay? You're repeating what was said by the tenant, okay? Write the F-bomb on the notice. It has more clout. It has more teeth. Tell the story. Go into the drama, okay? This notice that I'm about to read you does that, so just work with me and listen. Listen, okay? Listen, Linda. I'm playing. Okay. The reason for this notice being served is you have become an extreme nuisance and a serious threat to the neighboring residents, the managers, and the entire community. On or about blank date, blank management company sent the whole 10-unit apartment complex a takeover letter, letting everyone know that they are the new management company and payment should be made to them. You, blank tenant, were the on-site handyman for the previous owner in which you occupy apartment number blank. It was discovered that you are also occupying the only shown vacant apartment in the community, apartment blank, and storing your personal belongings in there without the approval of the landlord. When management attempted to enter that apartment, you denied them access. In addition, you were telling other tenants and potential tenants that the management company is fraud and that they don't own the complex. Well, I hate to tell you this, they probably don't own the complex, they manage the complex. But again, he's running his mouth. You're telling the story. This is where it matters, okay? On or about 9/23, you also threatened management stating, I have a gun and I'm not afraid to use it. A police report was made, report number blank with the blank police department. You also have made other threats to blank management companies, employees, and maintenance staff, and have become an extreme threat and nuisance to management, and their personnel are terrified for their lives and safety. You must vacate this notice within 3 days from the service of this notice. So you see how they're putting the dates, the times, the witnesses, the police report numbers, and telling the judge the story. That's what you're doing when you write these documents. You're telling the judge the story. If you leave it out of the story, as nicely as I can explain it to you, it didn't happen. If you didn't document it on here and you didn't document it where you should have, how is your attorney going to argue for you in court? So then what happens is you start to get frustrated and you start running your mouth, and that makes you look bad. The idea of this is so that you don't have to talk and your documents talk for you. If you put the dates, the times, the witnesses, the officer's name, the police report number, the city that ran the police report, and all the details, chances are you're not going to get asked too many questions if all of the information is right there. The idea when you do one of these is you want your documents to talk for you so that you don't have to talk. Okay? With that being said, if you tell the whole drawn out drama, the detail, the story, everything that happened, dates, times, witnesses, police reports. Chances are you're going to get asked very little questions by the judge when you get to court. That means you did your job. That means you did a good job. Are you with me? I know we're like, oh, don't write about the drama. That's a personal opinion. Don't do this. Now, when you're doing this, those rules go out the window. Write down what happened. If they were a jerk, write down that they were a jerk. If they told you that you're ugly and you wear glasses and you have blonde hair and you're short, then put that on there. Those are personal insults. Put those on there. Put on there what's going on. If they're pointing a gun at neighboring residents, put that on there. You know, this is where your teeth are, you guys. It's not in the argument with your mouth. It's in what you put on the papers. Okay? So it has to be there. If it doesn't have the teeth, chances are you're not going to win. Okay. Let me take a break just for 2 seconds, recompose myself. Anybody have any questions? Are you guys getting the gist of this? And I'm sure that we're going to have questions because that's just what happens. Okay, so far I got nothing. So if you guys got a question, let's talk about it. So if you call your legal counsel, and I'm giving you an example, and they say in the city of Riverside or wherever you're calling from, you need 2 covenants before we can do the quit notice. Here's what you need to do. Then you need to do those covenants twice. You need to re-inspect twice. And then once they don't comply with all of that, the 3-day to quit is the very last document that you serve them. Okay? Well, that you serve them. The next thing they're going to be served is the lawsuit by your legal counsel. So remember, the cure or quits, they can fix those. A quit notice, you can't fix. It's got to have a lot of teeth in order for a judge to say, okay, get out, you can't fix this. So we need to make sure all the drama's on there, all the information's on there. I'm getting a question from Heidi, so give me a second. We have a duplex that had a tenant complain last week about noise that has apparently been happening since August. We have a city ordinance for noise after 10 p.m. on weekdays and 11 p.m. on weekends. The tenant says there's music at 1 a.m. We wrote a letter to the other tenant, and he came in and said that the other tenants have been threatening him, banging on his walls and windows. What can we use to work on this? Here's my opinion, not my advice, because I'm not an attorney. Whenever you have a dispute between residences, especially like that, you need to tell the person that's first complaining of, why didn't you call the police? There's a city ordinance. We don't do domestics here. We don't handle this type of thing. No, but you need to also let the proper authorities know. I mean, people shouldn't be calling at you at 1 o'clock in the morning for a noise complaint. They should be calling the police so that you have an incident number so that you can document it and serve the notice. Get where I'm coming from? All right, does that make sense? Now, hold on, I'm reading something else. San Bernardino requires how many notices? Depends on your legal counsel, and it depends on what you're trying to go for. So it's going to go on a case-by-case basis. I can get the senior paralegal in here to ask San Bernardino County how many notices, but I already know he's going to ask me what's the violation. So give me an example. Is it police related? Because if it's police related, it's going to be a smaller amount. If it's non-police related and it's just lease violations, you may have to do it twice. But for the most part, San Bernardino County, in my opinion, has been very understanding. They don't make it as challenging as like LA. So lease violations, I'll ask him just if he could give us a roundabout figure. Remember, this all goes on a case-by-case basis. So he's just in general and what he's generally speaking of, okay? But I will ask him briefly. Let me see, I thought I saw something else. Considering COVID, right? Consider COVID. I mean, let's talk about COVID really quick. So have a tenant in a multifamily community when COVID first happened. He got laid off from work, had nothing better to do but sit in his unit and get drunk because he was getting plenty of money on unemployment and COVID hazard pay. So he'd get drunk all day in his unit, and then in the evenings and at night, he would run around the 3rd story floor butt naked, screaming that COVID was going to come kill everybody and was trying to jump out windows and do weird things. That would be a nuisance and a reason you could call the police. He's also disrupting the right to quiet enjoyment for all the other residents. So it's these types of things that help us. You guys get in these units, do your 24-hour notices to enter. When's the last time you were in there? How can you provide habitable premises if you don't know what condition your property's in? So you need to get in there. You need to have a look around. If they're not letting you in, they're just paving the road for you to evict them faster. Just saying. Okay, once you get in there, if you see all kinds of violations, because usually, let's face it, the reason they don't want you in there is because they're doing things they shouldn't be. When you see all those violations, immediately come do that covenant notice. Get that ball rolling, put all those details on there, get that ball rolling as quickly as you can and as thoroughly as you can with as much detail as you can. That's why I gave you examples today. Okay, give me 2 seconds. Let me see if the senior paralegal is there, and I'm gonna ask him really quickly, and then I'll come back to you, Heidi. I'm gonna ask for Crystal. Oh, it wasn't Crystal. Hold on. Oh, it was Crystal. She wants to know how many in San Bernardino County. Hang on. Joel.
The opportunity to cure. Even if it's a nuisance, you need one opportunity to cure, then the final notice.
So one opportunity to cure and then the quit. Perfect. Okay, so I just asked Joel, the senior paralegal at Fast Evict, and he said in San Bernardino County, you need one notice for them to cure, and then you need the quit notice behind it on a lease violation. Did that answer your question? I hope that answered your question. Crystal says yes. Okay. Can anything you spoke about today be applied to commercial property too? Absolutely. This is the same process and procedure for commercial property too. Let me take this a little bit further. Correct. If they cure it, there's no eviction. If they don't cure it, you can evict. Okay. All right. Thank you, Vicki. I'm happy we could help you. Also, I thought of something else when I walked in here. It'll come back to my little blonde brain. It just left it. They come back every once in a while like little butterflies. We have a drunk in another duplex. He yells and screams at night. We have told the tenant to call the police. We have no reports. Can we still work on other issues? Well, is the drunk in the other duplex is yelling and screaming at night? We can't do anything about people that aren't our tenants. If he is still your tenant, then he's disrupting the right to quiet enjoyment. If we can encourage other neighboring residents to call the police and get reports done, then we have incident numbers. It just helps tie everything together. And I hope that me reading the examples of 3-day covenant notices and how it references their rental agreement and the day that they moved in and signed it, this is how it all pulls together so that it flows nicely. Okay. I'm trying to think of what I was going to tell you guys regarding a quit. In some instances, just so you know, you are able to just do a quit notice. Okay. And that's me. This is me talking to you. There will be some instances where you can just do a notice to quit. By all means, your legal counsel has to tell you when those incidences are. But most likely when you have a police report with an arrest made, would be a notice to quit. Somebody murdered somebody inside the unit, maybe a notice to quit. They're in violation of a city rule. Example, maybe code enforcement is out there and they're now citing the owner because they had too many cars, too much trash and debris, and ignored the notices from the city. Sometimes if we have the help from the city or the help from our municipalities, if you will, that would be what governs us: city, county, state, police, animal control. These are all reasons that they're in violation of the city's rules, which we have to make sure our tenants follow the city rules. So even if you have an oral agreement and not a written agreement, they are still required to comply with municipalities, meaning city, county, state. They have to follow the rules. They can't be a nuisance. They can't break the law. They can't. So sometimes we can go straight to a 3-day notice to quit. A murder on the property. There's many reasons of why you can do just the 3-day to quit, but know this and hear me, to not give any warning, to not give them any attempt to cure, and just tell them you have 3 days to get out. They better have done something real bad. And that's me talking to you. You're asking a judge in a court of law without any warning or any way to fix this. These people have to get out. So it better have some big, strong teeth in it. And my theory has always been, if you think you can just go straight to a 3-day quit, double check with your legal counsel by all means, because we want to set you up for success, not for failure. We don't like failure. We like success. Okay, hold on. I see something. Okay, random. What if a pet is not registered as an emotional support pet? Okay, we're going to talk about this really quickly, Crystal. There is no registry for emotional support animals. I know they get online and they show you this thing. That's all BS, okay? So let me put this in a different perspective for you so that you can handle it easily, okay? Yes, you're bingo, right on the nose. It's bullshit. It's all bullshit. So Crystal, let me ask you a question. You manage investment property for a living, correct? I wish I could unmute you right now so you don't have to type. Hootie, are you with us?
Yeah.
Can you unmute Crystal just so her and I can have a brief conversation? Is it possible?
Hi there.
Hi. Okay, so you manage investment property for a living, correct?
I am starting to help my in-laws with their properties. Yes, so I guess, like you said, it is my title.
Okay, so in the middle of the night, you get woken up as a work-related stress thing to see it, oh, did I do this right? Did I handle this properly? Should I have addressed this in a different way? Does that happen to you?
As a tax preparer as well, yes.
Okay, so that's work-related stress. Hi, I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of California. Therefore, I'm considered a professional in the industry. I'm aware of your medical condition and your need for an emotional support animal. Would you like me to write you the note? While you're sitting there thinking about that, and I'm done, Hootie, we can get rid of the, we can mute her again. What I'm trying to explain to you is that easy for them to get a note for an emotional support animal. And here's the reality of it, okay? When you're talking about therapy animals, emotional support animals, service animals, it is this much fair housing because they just want to make sure you didn't discriminate. And it is this much ADA law. So you are poking a giant bear with really big teeth. So here's my opinion. When they give you the bullshit note, just say thank you and have them fill out a request for reasonable accommodations. You can get that from the Department of Fair Housing. It tells Fair Housing why you changed the rules for that person and not for everybody else, because it was based on their disability. Okay, so that's the document you need to help you. Again, that is a request for reasonable accommodations. That is why you're allowing that person to have an animal and not everybody else. And it's not considered discriminatory. You did it based on their disability. That's what's going to help you with the Department of Fair Housing to prove that you didn't discriminate. Okay, okay, you with me? If it's a Bengal tiger, call Fish and Game, Federal Wildlife. If it's a horse and it's an emotional support horse in residential property in a community where they don't allow livestock, you may want to contact animal control. In other words, reach to your municipalities and let them control what's happening we don't have any control and we're poking a big bear. So this is how I want you to think of it going forward, because it really helps put it in perspective for everybody. Okay. Stop thinking of it as an animal and start thinking about it as a wheelchair. Because if somebody with a wheelchair was moving into your property, could you charge them an additional deposit? Nope. Could you charge them additional rent for that wheelchair? Nope. When you start thinking of it as a wheelchair instead of a pet or an emotional support animal, it kind of tells you what you can and can't do. We can't charge them additional rent. We can't have special rules for them. We can't raise their deposit because they have a wheelchair. That dog, emotional support animal, whatever it may be, is a wheelchair. Tenant's still responsible for the damage that that causes, whether it be a wheelchair or a dog. They're still responsible for the damage, and they're still responsible to follow the guidelines of the municipalities that control us, which would be our police powers, our zoning, animal control, etc. So if they try to move a walrus into the swimming pool as an emotional support animal, chances are Fish and Game and Federal Wildlife isn't going to allow that to happen. Okay. But what I'm trying to tell you is it's not your decision to make. All right, hold on. There was another thing here and I'm trying to get to it. Is an emotional support animal applied to the same community rule as a pet? No. An emotional support animal, a therapy animal, a guide animal, anything that ends in animal, think as a wheelchair. You can't do anything. When it comes to pets and they say, I have a pet, you can ask for additional pet rent. You can ask for an additional deposit. You can have special rules for them. There is no law that governs what you can do for a pet, except there are caps in the state of California on how much you can charge for a deposit based on it being a vacant unit or a furnished unit. That is the cap. So example, you have an apartment that rents for $1,000 a month and it's vacant, meaning no furniture inside of it. The law says that you can charge double the rent as a security deposit. So you, on $1,000 rent, could have a $2,000 deposit. But now if they bring in a dog, you're done. You can't increase the deposit anymore. You're already at the cap. If you only took a $1,200 deposit, you have $800 more that you could request because of the pet, in the event that you wanted to go that direction. I'm going to tell you this too. If you're trying to base your case to evict them on unauthorized occupants, it can be challenging. If you're doing it on unauthorized pets, my personal opinion is don't. They can pull the note saying that it's an emotional support animal at the courthouse on the day of trial. If that happens, the case would most likely be dismissed. You lose, go home, start over. It's just too risky for me. When I go into court, I don't want to go on a 50-50 shot and sit in my chair like this, hoping they don't show up. I want more teeth behind me. If I personally am going to go through that matter, I don't want to do it on a whim or a maybe we'll pull it off kind of thing. You know, I want to go on, there's a 70% chance, or there's a this many percent chance that I'm going to succeed. I want that higher percentile. It's not worth my time if it's not. So I hope that answered your question on emotional support animals, therapy animals. They're all the same thing. They all fall under ADA guidelines. And quite frankly, it's not worth my credentials or yours for that matter to try to chase them down. My question becomes, get in the unit. What else are they doing? Are they not picking up the poop? Is the dog tearing up the carpet? Is the dog a nuisance? Okay, if they have an emotional support animal that's barking all the time, then that emotional support animal would be disrupting the right of quiet enjoyment for the rest of the residences. Lunging, striking, barking. You can, and I'm going to tell you this very carefully, so please heed my warning. Talk to your legal counsel first, because remember, ADA is a big bear with big teeth, okay? So we don't want to, thank you, Hootie. We don't want to poke that big bear with those big teeth. We want to be very careful what we're doing as far as emotional support animals and therapy animals go. My theory, like I said, is simple. Just tell them thank you. And until they create a national database, until they do something, basically, our honest tenants are going to continue to be honest, and our dishonest tenants, well, they're going to continue to do what they do best and manipulate the system to their advantage. Simply said, it's not within our wheelhouse, within our scope to go find out if they're telling the truth or not. And quite frankly, it's playing with fire. If you deny them, you could be sued without even it's discrimination. I think we had a client in Ventura that said, I don't care if you have a letter from a doctor. I'm allergic to cats and there's no cats here. We're not allowing it. He got sued for $78,000 because he denied them residency. $78,000. Ouch. I don't want to pay that. So I don't want you guys to. I'm going to go ahead and end today. If you guys have more questions, feel free to give me a call. I will not be here next week, just so you guys know. I am teaching at the Sheriff's Department Crime Free. We haven't been able to do this for several months because of COVID. So I'm finally getting the opportunity to get in front of my property managers next Wednesday. So yeah, I plan on doing that. And then stay tuned, because if the law changes, if something comes up, obviously we'll do an emergency webinar and make sure everybody's educated. But for the most part, I will not be live on Wednesday with Widget next week. And if you guys have any other questions, concerns, please feel free to email or call me. I'd be more than happy to help you. Hootie, you can put my last slide up now. All right, you guys, thank you so much. Like I said, reach out to me if you guys need anything, have any questions. Other than that, you guys have a great day, and we'll talk again soon, I'm sure. Bye, everybody.